Right, well, hello and welcome. Thank you for coming. Well, it's our pleasure to introduce Ana Garcia here, who, she's a former colleague of ours. She worked here up to 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think perhaps 4 years ago.
Well,
something like that.
You were here, but we've come here principally to talk about your first novel, isn't it? Yeah. El Sendero de la Palabra. And we hope that during the interview, you get some sort of idea of what kind of novel it is, and some idea about what it's about, and most importantly, to whet your appetite and make you intrigued enough to want to read it. Okay, so we'll start.
Yeah.
How are you? Sorry.
Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. Welcome. And can you hear us at the back? Yeah. And thank you for having me here, and just to show you my novel and my dream. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get down to business then. Right, yeah. Okay, so, when I talk about a book, I always start with the title of the book. I always think that a good title should be like a point of entry or a doorway into the book. And, do you think El Sendero de la Palabra serves this function? Or?
Yeah, I think it does. When I chose this title, sometimes you write the book and then you get the title at the end of the writing, and other times you have the title from the beginning. Yeah, and in this case, I had the title from the beginning because it showed me a bit the way that I wanted to take. No. And yes, I mean, the title tells you a lot about the content. It should be like that, I suppose. Yeah, and we are talking about a path, El Sendero, and we're talking about words. So this is mainly what the book is about. Yeah, so it does act as a kind of gateway into the story. Yes.
Into the sendero,
yes.
the pathway you talk about. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're going to translate the book into English, but would the word path or the pathway of words be a good title?
Yeah, well, of course, I would love to have it translated. That's not happening at the moment. It's not going to happen in the short future. But if the Spanish version works well, if we have enough readers, I expect to have it translated, of course. No? It would be a dream to share it with the rest of the readership around the world. And I've thought about the title, yes. It would be something like, something similar to what you said, the path of words, or I thought about the trail of words, or... You see, that's the problem with this program from the PC is the word pad that doesn't really make me choose something like the word path, because it sounds very similar. No? So I suppose it would be something like the trail of words, to make it different from that, something like that.
Paper trail.
Paper.
Something that you follow, or something that you follow and leads you somewhere.
Yes, a paper trail.
That's what I'm asking you.
No, I wouldn't have chosen that. I would have chosen something like trail, path. But instead of the word path or the word trail, the trail of words or the path of words, something to give the idea of the content of the word. So yes, hopefully it will get translated at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, returning to the trail, or the path, or whatever you want to call it, but. It suggests like something of a journey. You follow a path, or you go along a trail, or whatever. But then you got palabra or word, which suggests more like storytelling. So I don't know if there's a connection there that you want to establish between going along a trail and telling stories.
Wow. The idea was to connect two things. One is the path or the way that the protagonist takes at the beginning of the story, and it refers to a journey that on which he sets off to look for something. No? To say that he's looking for a self-explanation, trying to understand himself, trying to understand his own life, trying to get the meaning of what his life is, no? Why he's having he's been having recurrent dreams. I don't know if you understand that, dreams that are repeated. He's trying to understand things that are happening to him. At the beginning of the story, his little sister dies. I'm not spoiling anything by saying that because it's stated at in the back. And so, in order to cope with everything that is happening to him, he sets off on a journey that has two sides. It could be something like a literal meaning, so a real journey. You know, he goes to Ireland. He at the beginning of the story, he lives in Spain, in a village, in a little town in Spain. And then he moves to the land of his ancestors, which is Ireland. So we have a real journey there. But at the same time, we have something more metaphorical. No? That's what I referred to before. That's looking for himself, looking for an explanation of himself, trying to understand himself. And that was one of the elements. And the other one was how he starts that journey, or what are the tools that he has during that journey. And that is words. No? Both the words that he's an excellent storyteller, so he likes telling stories. So we could say that words are his tool. Yeah. So on the one hand, we have the words that he creates to tell the stories that he uses to communicate and to recreate a new world, and on the other hand, there's the words that his mother, who is one of the main characters of the story, has been, offering both him and his sister to keep the memory or to preserve the memory of the traditional folk stories of Ireland. Also, his mother has been telling them the stories of their native Ireland to keep them alive for them, and she has been repeating these stories word for word so that they can memorize them and they can preserve them and they can continue to communicate them. Yeah. So those two elements, the journey and the path, and then the words are joined in this idea. No? So I suppose that this is the path, this is the itinerary that he's going to follow.
Okay, so it's a story about telling stories.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So the journey in this storytelling journey, who is the traveller, the storyteller, or the listener, or the reader?
Well, I would say that the three of them are traveling, yeah, because when you're a storyteller, when you tell stories, what you try to do is create a new world, yeah, and that could be something like take people with you on a journey to accompany you to that new world that you have created for them. So yeah, I mean, you travel with your own stories, yeah, with your own words, telling the stories. You make the listeners and the readers, both the listeners and the readers, travel with you, or you try to attract them, to make it appealing for them to accompany you on your journey. So I suppose that all of them are travelers, yeah, in a way.
Okay, but of course Connell, who's the main character, I mean, of course he tells the stories orally.
Yeah.
what difference do you see as an oral storyteller to a writer? Which is your case, because I mean you are telling the story, but in a different medium.
Yeah.
So what kind of journey is that?
Right. Now the main focus of my story was on the oral tradition of telling stories. That was for me the most important thing. The thing that I wanted to communicate, the importance of keeping oral stories alive from Irish folklore mostly, but it could be from any given culture. And then that's why my protagonist is a storyteller, and that's why his mother told them the stories orally. She didn't put them into writing. She wanted them to remember them, to repeat them, because when you commit something to memory, I think it's better preserved. At the same time, it's more fragile, because, I mean, if there's no support, no written support to keep it, but at the same time, it's more precious, and you keep it with love, I suppose, with passion. You keep it, you keep it alive. And the fact that at that time I have written a story, I've tried to combine both things. Just try to give it the mood of oral narrations. That's why I tell the stories in the way that my narrator seems to be telling them. So I wanted to do that quite oral, quite natural, sounding as if you had Connell, my protagonist, there telling you his stories. So both things are there. The love for the written word, of course, but mostly the love for stories, either written or oral, and they're both combined there.
Okay. Mind you, it is a story full of twists and turns. Unexpected events. Is that the same for the storyteller or the writer? When you're doing this journey in telling a story, in writing it out, do you follow, or do you have a similar sensation of straying off the path, or the path taking you to places that you didn't expect, or ending up somewhere that
you hadn't planned, or something like that?
Planned. I mean, the actual writing process, or the process of telling the story.
When you're writing a story, I don't know if you have ever written anything, but if you have, you will know, that you can plan everything very well. I mean, there are two types of writers, let's say. So there's the type of writer who plans everything, beforehand, so that you know more or less when to start, when to finish. Some scenes in the middle are clear, and these in Spanish are called something like a map writer. So you know quite well what is going to happen more or less at every point during the narration. And there are other types of writers who are called something like compass writers. Those are the ones that only have a couple of points of reference in the story, and then they start writing, and then they continue writing towards wherever the story takes them. So they have room for improvisation, for changing plans, for all of that. Now, depending on the type of person you are, you will be one type of writer or the other. As I'm quite chaotic, I forget things, I need to have everything planned beforehand. So I'm a map writer. And having said that, however hard you plan to write something with your notes, with your scenes, with your maps and everything, there's a moment when, and this is the magic of literature, there is a moment when the characters seem to start acting out of their own volition, doing what they like. So this is a bit like magic. I don't say that this happens to me because I am illuminated or something. I suppose that happens to all writers, that you plan something for your characters. For example, you know that you're going to write a given scene, yeah, during the day, and you sit down in front of the computer, and then you start writing. But you don't know what the characters are going to say or what they are going to do exactly. And then as you start and you continue, they seem to contribute to the story magically. No? This is something that I love about literature, because you cannot really control them, and you get new ideas. So in the end, even if you had planned to follow a fixed itinerary, in the end you deviate, you change your mind, you add new things. Yeah, but so those twists and turns come a lot, yes, happen a lot, because I mean you cannot really control everything, and you think of new things, you continue reading. I mean, it takes a long time to write a novel. For this one, it took me 4 years to write, because I was working here, I was doing other things. It was my first novel. It takes time to write. So that means that you change a lot, yeah, on the way to finishing it, and you grow up, you get other material, so inevitably things change. So yes, I mean those, even if you plan, you're going to have those twists and turns, just as you have in the plot.
Okay, but the destination was the same, the one that you actually arrived at and the one that you planned to.
Yeah, more or less it was. Yeah. There were some deviations from the main road, but I ended up where I wanted to finish.
Yeah, some missed turnings. And,
yes.
Okay, all right then. How much of you is there in Connell? If there is anything. Right.
There is, of course there is. I cannot say there isn't. I think it's inevitable when you are writing, mostly when you're writing your first novel, you need to pour everything that you've had inside for all your life until that moment. Yeah. Later, with time, with practice, perhaps you select more, or you avoid completely to add anything that is one personality trait of yours that is recognizable. Yeah, but, I mean, in common with Connell, I might have that I was a university lecturer. Where we met, by the way.
Those are the days.
Yeah, long gone. And my mother was ill, just as his mother is ill. She suffers from multiple sclerosis, which is an important fact in the book, because illness and losing someone is very important in the story. We both love words. We both love communication, music, landscape. I think that would be it. I mean, no more similarities.
No more. So it's not
quite a lot.
Yeah. It's not a confession then. Right. Okay. Right then. Well, earlier you said that an important component of the novel was Ireland, Irish culture, and well, the book does read rather like a tribute to Ireland and the Irish way of perhaps understanding the world. I don't know if you agree with that view, or
with the view I portray in the book, or
no, I mean,
or
as
what
a
you're saying that it's a tribute.
Yeah, I found
yes.
it's very heartfelt. You know, that
yes.
you felt very identified with.
Yes, it's
Ireland,
one of those passions that you cannot always explain. You feel very deeply towards something just because. Perhaps there's not a reason. Some people love places that they have never been to, or they feel attracted to a culture that they know probably not much about, and then you get into that and you get information and you get to love it more. So Ireland for me, I got interested in it through my career as an English philologist. I was in contact with the country and with the history, with the literature, with the music. So I would say that my first contact with Ireland was through music. Yeah, the first time I listened to Irish music, I fell in love with it, and then, as I was saying, being a university lecturer, I had to deal with English literature and also with Irish writers who wrote in English. Yeah, so I got interested in the literature and then in the history. Firstly, I got interested in contemporary history. You know, the time of the IRA attacks, terrorist attacks, contemporary history mostly. And then I saw that that was something that really engaged me. I couldn't explain. So I studied it. I researched, and I went back to the history of past centuries, and that is how I got information about the Anglo-Norman conquest of Ireland, which took place in the 12th century. And I thought that was a turning point in the history of Ireland, because it was when Ireland lost its identity, let's say, because the Norman conquerors and English conquerors came, sent by King Henry II of England. They went to Ireland, and we could say that they turned it into a colony, from the 12th century. And for some people, even for me, it was a moment when the purity of the Isle, the old traditions, the old customs, the Celtic world that was so strong there, began its decline because of that colonization, let's say, And I think I'm getting lost and losing my thread. The question was my interest in Ireland.
Well, I think there are lots of there are lots of other trails that branch off from.
So my main interest in Ireland comes mostly summing up from music, the history, the literature, and then I traveled there for the first time. I don't know if you can see the images, but if you've never been to Ireland, you need to go right now. So get a ticket, because it's a beautiful land. That is a house I rented to spend a sabbatic there. That was my car. I couldn't stay there for as long as I planned. I had planned to go because of the climate. I mean, the weather, the climate conditions, the weather every day, pushed me away of the place because of the wind. That's Connell. That is the second Connell. That is my dog, named after the protagonist, and the beauty of that. So when I traveled there for the first time, I was dumbfounded. Really, I was so impressed, and there was some kind of connection that was established immediately. So I had to go back almost every year. So if you put all those components together, you see that I'm in love with the place. So I mean, look at that.
You actually do see that the landscape is an important element in the novel. Actually, there is time given to describing. I think I've never been there, but I can actually recognise it from the book. So it's quite vivid.
The landscape in two different ways. Let's say the physical landscape, what you can actually see, and also the landscape as a way to reflect emotions, which is something that comes from Romanticism, the way to portray or to communicate emotions through the landscape, the weather conditions. Or if you are in a dark mood, you will have cloudy skies, you will have stormy seas and all that. And I like using that resource quite a lot, because I think it's a good way to communicate feelings.
Okay, so writing the book was some way to sort of get it out of your system, or to control this. Well, I wouldn't say obsession is a strong word for that, but this
it might be passion, perhaps.
Passion,
a way to pour, to channel those emotions and try to convey them to the rest of the world. Because I'd like you or the readers or whoever listens to me to be able to see it as I do, to feel as I do towards it, because it's a magical world where magic is everywhere. You can breathe it. Only the landscapes are enough to get you.
Well, going back to Connor, because earlier you said, in a way, it's his journey. It's a journey back to Ireland, back to its history. I don't want to give too much away. You said it was also a search for himself. Is it a discovery of his own identity, or is it a rediscovery of his identity?
Perhaps you're giving away.
Oh, I am. Okay.
I don't know. No, but because when you're trying to discover something about yourself, it has probably been there all the time. So you just have to dig and try to find what you feel inside, but it's there. I mean, perhaps it's nothing new, or it's new to you, but it was there. You had all those traits. You had all those feelings before. Yeah. So yeah.
Because I mean, the path pre-exists the traveller, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was just one of the things. Because sometimes I had the impression that Connell's identity is in some ways predetermined or very much conditioned by the collective identity, or at least his inherited identity. Yeah. It's there before him. Rather than his individual identity. It seems to be kind of subsumed there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was your idea or it's my reading of it.
Perhaps it's your interpretation, but it's been there. You're right. I mean, every reader should make the story his or her own, their own. So when you read it, you make it your own. You interpret it in a different way from the one the other person next to you does. So, I mean, when his mother started telling him and his sister about all of these stories, these traditional Irish stories, she was trying to preserve a collective memory of the people, of a people that she was trying to remember, to make him remember, so that it wouldn't get lost in time. In a way, she acts as a kind of a guardian of memory, which is something that I like very much. A guardian of memory, so that memory is not lost, or those memories are not lost. So from the beginning, she has, let's say, imposed a task of preserving something that is collective. But at the same time, on the way to preserving that, on trying to understand everything that his mother has been keeping for him, he's starting a path that leads to his own knowledge. So he's trying to know himself first, but at the same time he's trying to know his people, and he's trying to discover things that will preserve the knowledge and a given culture. So both things are preserved. It's not that one is more important than the other. And so the path is there before the traveller, or is it the other way around? I like to think that either the path exists and then you set off, you start that journey, with words or whatever is that is leading you, or you might make your own path, by looking for the things that are important to you. So you don't follow something that is established, that is fixed, which could be tradition and all these things that his mother has kept for him. But at the same time, an idea that I like to state in my story is that there's tradition, there are fixed things, but sometimes you have to deviate, you have to get away from that fixed path, from those traditions, in order to find yourself, in order to do something more important. So both things can keep up at the same, more or less the same level of importance.
Yeah, and then there's the storytelling that is, part of that culture, but in some ways, of course, it helps that culture endure and to push that culture onwards, forwards. storytelling as maintaining that continuity between the past and the present. Storytelling seems to be part of that, an essential part of that.
A kind of bridge, or a kind of means to keep the past alive and to continue that culture to move on and to continue existing. So that is that could be the role of storytelling here. As a way, storytelling as an act of creation, of expanding the paths, expanding the way, giving you more choice. So something like that, yes.
Yeah, so storytelling as a way of maintaining that collective memory.
Yes.
So in that sense, Connell is a guardian as well.
Mm-hmm. We could say that too. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I suppose he has inherited that task from his mother. So, and I think he does it well. He knows. And he learns, and he loves his culture. So it's a hard task, but one that he's willing to perform. So yes.
So he's willing to perform. You said also it's a very fragile thing, because in a way, an impression you have throughout the novel is that it's a culture which is like under siege. It's continually threatened, and it's always there on the brink of disappearing altogether. But but it still hangs. It manages to hang on.
I mean, it's a culture that is based on oral traditions or oral narration. So if we compare that to the moment we are living nowadays, it's a kind of face-to-face communication, not going through the written means. We could compare these two things. This keeping that oral tradition alive is difficult in times like this we are living, when technological devices are everywhere and face-to-face communication is becoming rare. And it's harder and harder to find people talking face-to-face and not through a device. So I wanted to emphasize the need to keep that kind of communication. And I usually do it with an image that I like a lot, which is that of people sitting around a bonfire, listening to a story, listening to someone telling stories, even participating and contributing to the story with your own words, or that with something like what we do after a meal, in the afternoon before leaving the table. You share anecdotes with your friends at the table with a coffee, and you tell stories from the past, and you keep that moment of intimate, close communication, face to face, orally. You don't need to write to do that. So I wanted to communicate something similar. That even in days like this, it's possible to preserve face-to-face communication, oral communication, and that's why my narrator is someone that gives prominence to the oral word rather than the written one.
So it's all about sharing.
About sharing, of course. About sharing ideas, words. About not wanting to change the others, but just share, just to exchange viewpoints and just enjoying good stories and talking to people, looking at them in the face, and just being there with human contact. I think that is something very important in my novel too. The power of words and the power of communication and the love for words, mostly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I do notice that the one thing I noticed was this complete absence of all the technological gadgetry that dominates our lives. In the last this millennium. There's not a mobile phone in the whole story. I think in fact Connell actually calls home
a phone box.
A phone box.
A phone box, and that is a very natural thing to do. Yeah, I mean that was completely intentional. I didn't want to set the story in any. I don't tell you 1983. I just leave you to choose a moment. I mean, there are some things I will tell you that could be something like the late 1980s or something like that, but I never say when we are in the present. In the past, I do. I set a time so that you know more or less where we are. But in the present, let's say a present, late 20th century, something like that, just as I don't say exactly where the story is set while it takes place in Spain. You know, part of the story begins in Spain and then the action moves on to Ireland. Yeah. So while they are in Spain, I never say where they are exactly. I just say there's something, a little town in.
Well, there are a few clues.
Yeah, I leave some clues for the people who know me will know that might recognize some places that might be Segovia, my hometown, or they could be Valencia, where I live nowadays, or they could be places in Madrid where I studied. So there's a mixture of things, because I think it's a good idea to let the reader make those things theirs again, to own those things, to create your own map or your own landscape of things, of faces, just as I don't tell you what my main character looks like. I don't tell you that he looks like James McAvoy, no? Because if I told you that, then probably you would see his face, and for some people it would be a good idea. For others, it would be ruining the story. In fact, I cannot see his face. I mean, I cannot really say what face he has or the other characters. But just by making things a bit, let's say, imprecise, imprecise, and I give freedom to the reader so that they can choose their own faces, their own time, their own street where you see him walking and things like that. I think that's important, to feel that as a reader you are free, to imagine, to use your own imagination powers, the imaginative powers.
But it doesn't look like Antonio Banderas.
No,
okay. Yeah, you said in precision, so he would go with this rather misty Irish landscape. And the mists of time as well. So
precision. It's something that I like a lot. A bit vague. The idea, the freedom to choose and to dream and to see things as you see them, as you only see them, because each of you will see things differently. So I think that's important.
Okay. So for a millennial approaching this book, what would you say to them? Somebody who is completely immersed in this world of smartphones and iPads. If there is a right way to approach this?
That would be quite a hard task. Yeah. I don't know. I think I could only get this type of reader by making him value the attractive of other countries, of a place where nature is very important, but at the same time you have, because you know that Ireland is one of the places where you have the highest technology, state of the art. Technology. So, I mean, if you go to Ireland, it doesn't mean that you go to the Middle Ages. No, you have everything there. So, it would be difficult to convince a millennial to read my story unless they are open to new stories, to magic. I mean, there's magic, there's time traveling, there's music. A bit of magic. Yes.
There is a little bit of perhaps science fiction.
Fantasy, let's say.
Fantasy would be
fantasy and magic are important in this story. They are not the only components. It's a fantasy novel, but that doesn't mean that not everybody can read it. One of the difficult things nowadays about publishing your first novel or publishing a novel is that they ask you to classify it from the beginning. So you have to say what genre it belongs to. So if you want somebody to first read your book, you have to say to which genre it belongs. So it's fantasy, yeah. But that doesn't mean that it cannot be enjoyed by other people, because the components are those that you can find in any other genres. You can have love, you can have family relationships, the love for tradition. You find music, you find landscapes, you find different kinds of love, not only romantic love, but of other kinds. You find magic. You find I don't know, what else can you find? Villains.
Yeah.
The archetypical fight between good and evil is there. So many things that you can find in other types of novels. But if you like fantasy, you will like it. But if you are not a fantasy reader, there are other things for you. There's loss. I mean, I wanted to emphasize the theme of loss, because, I mean, who hasn't lost someone in your life? Either a parent or a lover or a close friend, yeah? And I think it's the main thing, because I wanted to highlight the effect of loss on people. What makes us move towards, what makes us act. In this case, it's loss. So, depending on how loss affects you, depending on what you have lost, if you have lost a parent or something, you will act one way or another. Some people get paralyzed when they lose someone, yeah? Others find the reason to act, to move on, to continue with their life. So I think that is a very important thing. So do you usually find loss in fantasy? Perhaps not. Here you find it, yeah, and other things too.
Yeah, and being lost.
Yes, and being lost.
Connell at the beginning
and being lost
is rather lost.
Yeah, lost and trying to find.
He hasn't found his path.
Yeah,
he hasn't found his path.
Yeah. Which is something, I mean, universals are things that everybody can identify with. So I was trying to show the things that are important to me, and that is not classifiable as a genre, because there are things that move the humankind, and they belong to all kinds of genres. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were earlier saying something about that. The writer has to find a niche for the different type of reader. But in a way, your novel or you, it's something that you fight against, or something that you resist being slotted into a confined space. No?
Because you are depriving some part of the readership of that story. If you tell them that it's fantasy, some people will say, okay, I'm not interested in fantasy. But if you tell them that there are other things, and then you don't have to deny, I mean, the importance of different elements. So, yeah.
Okay, a bit of folklore as well.
Yes, folklore, oral traditions, storytelling. I don't know if when you were a child you had someone telling you stories, bedtime stories, but also other kinds of stories. If you liked reading and all those things, so this is something that has been very important for me, because, I mean, as I said before, my mother was ill, so perhaps the role of the storyteller, which is the one that Connell's mother has in this story. The role of a mother telling your story, in my case, was taken up by my brother, one of my brothers. So the thing is that I had my stories there for me, even though my mother wasn't there to tell them to me. So if you had someone there telling you about folk stories, traditional fairy tales and things like that, I think that you will feel identified with this need to create the magical world for children, so that when they grow up, they've had this little, say, something like a cushion, something to preserve their innocence, but at the same time to make them stronger to face life as an adult. So I think that's an important part of my story too.
Because this is your first novel.
It is my first.
It's your only one so far.
Yeah, it's my first published novel.
Your first, but there
but I have two more novels. Yeah.
So you're still going along that path.
Yeah, not alone this story, but yes, I mean, this is the thing about being a novel writer, that it's difficult to get a place. And while you wait for something to happen, while you wait for your chance to be published, either you get desperate, or you continue writing, and that is what I did. I continued writing, and I wrote 2 more novels. They have nothing to do with this one. I wrote another story, steampunk story. Yeah, I'm here. We are here. And, the second book I wrote is.
Good to see you.
They wouldn't know what I look like. I would say that the second novel I wrote was a steampunk. Steampunk, I don't know if you know this genre, it's a kind of speculative fiction coming from science fiction, and it happens in a Victorian setting, with anachronistic devices and artifacts.
It's
and
kind of retro science fiction.
Yeah, retro science fiction. Yes. They say it's well, it comes from science fiction, and it's about a scientist who has decided to fight against death. So he wants to defeat death so that no one has to die, which is, from the start, is a lost battle. Probably that's what you might think.
But it's, in a way, this is what this novel, Sendero de la Palabra, is about.
Yeah.
It is a fight against.
Fight against something. Well,
perhaps
in a different way. In a different way. Yeah, well, I suppose. That in the end the archetypes are there for one reason or another. And then I wrote a third novel, which is not fantasy. So I changed genre, and I come back to Ireland because you know that everyone has their own obsessions, passions. Let's say, if we have mild that time, and it's just a story about a woman who tries to find her origins, and there's a story of abuse and ill treatment, and so
it's not a trilogy. So
no, not at all. So 3 different books, and I'm writing my 4th novel now.
So Harry Potter. Right.
That would be a good.
The 4th novel. Yeah.
The 4th novel. So it's a hard way. It's a long path, that of the writer.
But you're very fit.
Well, I am. I'm trying to be. So, but you have to fight, and you have to believe in what you have done. And
so, if your legs get tired, or your
there's always someone there to help you. Yes. So.
Yeah. That is a sort of the thing, because even you always think of writing or telling stories as a rather solitary activity, but in the novel it's more a collective one. I mean, Connell gets a lot of encouragement.
Yes.
Well, he's even pushed into it, isn't
yes, it? Yes, it's a kind of Hamlet. Act now. But he has encouraging and help, a lot of help, which emphasizes again the idea that there's the individual trying to find his own way, but at the same time there's a collectivity, there's a group of people, acting like a unity, and I think that neither of them has more importance than the other. They are there to support each other, and both ideas are possible. No? Individuality and collectivity, and if both coexist, I think that's a good thing.
Okay. And that was your experience. You had a lot of support when you were, or are writing, because...
well, you write, you are on your own. I mean, support or reject comes afterwards when you finish your book, and then you of course need support. You need your first readers to tell you what you have done, or what have you done with those, and with those characters. Then, of course, you need help. You need other people to read what you have written to see if it's a good story, if you have said something that is inconsistent. And then you need an editor, you need an agent. She's my agent, Susana. Thanks to her, this has been published because she helped me to polish the story, to polish the language, to make it better. This is the best final version that you could get of a book. Yeah? You have to stop at some point. You have to stop correcting, but at the beginning you have to correct a lot. Yeah, but if you didn't stop correcting, you would never write anything else. So then you stop and then you continue. So that yes, a lot of support and.
But you're basically on your own.
You're on your own. But then, when you have it published, of course, you rely on people's help and love and people encouraging you when things are difficult and telling you, of course, it's going to be published, and of course, we are going to spread the word that you have written that. So you get a lot of help and a lot of love from people that you never suspected that would be there for you. So it's very satisfactory.
Okay, and finally, I mean, well, for somebody who wants to start this journey, who wants to go along this trail or path of words, what would you say to them? Somebody who wants to be a writer.
Yeah. Anyone here who is planning to be a writer or who is a writer? No?
We leave that to you.
But then, I mean, my advice, I mean, it's something that I've had to learn from myself, that you have to learn to be patient. Because, I mean, I finished this, I started this book 11 years ago, and only now has it been published. So if you are not patient, you will probably give up writing and you will do something else. I mean, I'm an English teacher, so I don't need it to live, so to get my living. So be patient, continue writing, read a lot. That is helpful, both if you are a writer and any other person or any other type of person. So read a lot, because you will get other experiences, you get a wider view of life and an understanding of other people's perspectives. So yeah, I mean, I'm not here to give any piece of advice to anyone, but my experience is that if you want something and you really want it, you have to be patient, you have to learn to continue working even if you don't get any results. No? But in the end, things arrive when you have to get them, you get them. Yeah, and otherwise it means that you should be doing something else. Yeah. So the important thing is that you enjoy what you do, and writing in general is a very satisfactory experience. And writing this book was a magical experience for me. So we don't want to bore you to death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you going to read perhaps a passage from it?
Yeah. If you
Maybe
want to.
together.
That might come after the questions, if there's anyone else who has a question.
Yeah. I think that would be good
Perhaps if there are any questions.
Just to
it would
close,
be-
yeah.
I'd like to ask a
Would
question.
anyone like to ask me a question? I know it's difficult when you haven't read the story, but I don't know
I've read a few
from the
things,
things.
so
Yes.
maybe it doesn't nobody else out. So, yeah.
Well, you are
Yeah,
reading the story, so...
I am actually, yeah. I've read
Okay.
a bit of it, maybe I've heard of it.
Uh-huh.
So, but I've got maybe a couple of questions on the story, and I've also got questions about you as making a decision of becoming a writer. So I don't know where to start with. What do you prefer?
Shoot. There we go.
I don't know. Maybe I'll start with I don't know. Let me start myself. I'll start with this thing of Irish folklore. I don't know. Do you think that Irish folklore is maybe more prone to oral tradition than other cultures? Did you choose Irish folklore because of that? Or was it one of the reasons why you chose that culture?
It was. I don't know about many other cultures, but I suppose that most cultures have their origins on oral traditions. Yeah. But the thing is that in Ireland they have preserved that tradition, and it has survived until these days. It's still alive. So storytelling is something that you will find if you go to Dublin and you go into a pub. Perhaps not all pubs, but you will have a storytelling session every, let's say, Friday night, yeah? And so that's why I chose it, because I was interested in this kind of preservation of that kind of culture, no? The one that didn't need the written word, yeah? So that's why I chose it. I suppose that in other cultures there's the same thing.
Do you think it's more a thing of Irish culture?
I think that for them it's very much alive, and
more than the
I mean,
Spanish side. Or
I think so. I think so. That doesn't mean that in Spain we don't have that. Yeah? But storytellers, they used to be called. This is a word that appears on my book. Is Shanakihe. Shanakihe. A Shanaki is this storyteller, and that comes from the Celtic people. Yeah. So this figure that was this began among the Celtic people as among druids, druids, yeah, as the person that was in charge of preserving the collective chronicles, the chronicles of that people, yeah, in particular. But that figure evolved into a storyteller as we know it today. It continued to be called the Shanaki. Yeah, the Shanaki. And then it became something like a traveling storyteller, one that went from one place to another, telling the stories in the square, the main square, the villages, towns, in exchange for a hot meal or for a place to spend the night in, and something like that. So that tradition has been preserved. And I know there are some people who do it, who still do that. I mean, perhaps not in such a romantic view as I portrayed here. But, as I said before, if you go to a pub, you still get that session of storytelling. You get the whole package. You have dinner, and after dinner you have storytelling. And you have someone who goes there and entertains the people, the customers, let's say, So it has evolved into something that is not so romantic and so nice. I mean, this is just an example, but there are storytelling sessions and tours all around Ireland. So they have preserved that tradition. That's why I think that this is one of the main cultures that has kept oral tradition alive. Mm-hmm. That's why I chose it.
That's why you chose it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The novel is divided into 3 parts, right? The first one's called Silence.
Mm-hmm.
The second has to do with memory, and I can't remember because I haven't written it.
Yeah.
Does it have anything? I mean, why did you say with Silence? Does it follow any path as well? I mean, those 3 titles or the 3 parts of the novel.
Silence is in this case the absence of words.
Yeah.
So when he
that's
cannot,
the beginning.
That's the beginning. When he cannot really find the words when he's at the beginning of the journey, yeah, he has to find those words, yeah, and those are the words that I mentioned before, the words that his mother has left for him and his sister to find his own way. So it's an image of picking up words that his mother has left for him to find and to continue the way and to find his own words. Yeah. So silence as opposed to words. Yeah. So when you don't have anything to say, you don't know what to say, you remain silent. Yeah. And on the way he starts and language evolves, develops.
Okay.
And comes alive.
Voice, yes.
Yes, and he finds his own voice. That's true. Yes.
That's the last part of the novel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a bit of magic, there's a lot of magic, but what I've read so far, there's a bit here and there, the bees, bites, I don't know, there's a bit of that here and there. Now, does that magic come out of the blue, or does it have any connection to some Irish story, maybe folklore, I don't know, is it connected to something that it just comes out of the blue, you decide on the bees, or something else going on, just out of the blue?
Not really out of the blue. The thing is that when you create your stories, they usually come from somewhere. I mean, somewhere from something, and that something probably is the stories that you as a child and your life have read, and the things that you have been imagining throughout your life. Yeah. So everything that you have put into your imagination, let's say, it has its own way of coming out. Yeah. So I haven't taken any ideas from Irish folklore. Apart from mentioning some stories, there are some traditional Irish stories. But the main plot of my narration doesn't come from anything that I have read. It comes, I suppose, from a mixture of the things that I imagine, the things that I have read. Everything that you have inside, you pour it into the narration. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now comes the questions on you as a writer, I think. Mm-hmm. Oh well, at some point I think Conal says, I think it's when he's somewhere, right, I don't want to spoil it too much, but he's somewhere and he says there's a music playing and he says something like he values the skill of being able to play an instrument over the skill of being able to tell a story.
Yeah.
Now, is that your own thought, or is it what he believes, or do you back that too, or what do you make of it? What do you?
Well, that comes, I suppose. I mean, you don't do everything just for a purpose. I mean, you sometimes things just come out like that, yeah. And then after you've written them, you realize that there's a reason for everything you say, yeah. And I suppose that music is of paramount importance in my novel. In fact, there is a QR code, yeah. Here, my editor thought it a good idea just to include a QR. It's not in this one, yeah, but on these ones, because music is so important to me that I made a playlist. I made a playlist, yes, with the songs that inspired me to write some of the scenes, yeah. So why? Because music is so important to me. It's as important to me probably as words. And I would have liked to have been a musician. That is what I think that lies behind this extract that you have selected. No? This idea that my protagonist at some point says that he considers more important the ability to play music than that of telling stories. Yeah. Is not my opinion, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think they are both abilities are valuable, are incredible, amazing, but the important thing is to have something to say, to communicate. You can do it either through music or either through literature or by painting or just by talking to people or by doing whatever you do that you can do well or that you like doing. Yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, music is my passion. I cannot play because I don't have time, because perhaps I wouldn't have the ability. I have tried, but it's difficult to do everything in life. So in the end, you have to select one thing that you can do more or less well, or that you like a lot, and you need time for that. So if you work and you have to write and you play an instrument, you are Leonardo da Vinci, and I'm not Leonardo da Vinci. So I try to do what I can with the tools I've been given. Yeah. So
I have to say I'm following.
Is musical.
Yes. Yes. There are 3 musicians in my story. I mean, his mother was a harpist. She played the harp. His sister played the violin. There's another violinist. So music is there all the time. I've tried to communicate, to portray the atmosphere of an Irish pub with a traditional music session there, because that is one of the best experiences you can have when you go to Ireland. Just to go and have a drink and listen to people playing there and just creating music out of nothing. No? They start and they join the band without having performed, without having rehearsed at all. So that is, music is everywhere. So that's the idea. Yeah.
I just said I'm following your playlist on Spotify.
You are?
Yeah, I like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. If you don't have a Spotify account, you just have to Google El Sendero de la Palabra. It will take you to Spotify. I think something like 30 seconds for every song that I have selected. My idea was not to influence how you read the book, yeah, but just to share with you those songs that not that because you can write a story and then choose the music that would suit it better. Yeah, so you just make the connection after you have written. But the other thing you can do is that, or that might happen, is that while you listen to certain songs, you get the inspiration to write, which is what has happened to me. Yeah, so these songs are important to me. Perhaps you will not like them, but they are there, and if you want to listen to them while you read the story, or afterwards, or before, it's there. Yeah, so that's thank you.
And the last question has to do with you making the decision of becoming a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you decide to become a writer? When did it dawn on you? Was it, I don't know, one day just decided that was the thing for you to do in life, or it was something that happened little by little? How did it go on?
Yeah, you don't. Well, I didn't decide to become a writer. I don't think that's something you decide. That emerges from whatever you are doing. At some point in your life, you realize that you are writing. That you are writing little things, little stories, poems. I started writing awful poems.
Have you always written? Say when you were a child.
Yes. First creating stories, telling stories to my brother. We told each other stories, and then I tried writing poems, terrible ones. I read them to my friends, the poor things. But then there was a time when I wasn't writing, and then while I was working at university, working on my thesis, a story came to me in, I suppose you get the ideas from the syllables I was teaching, from things people tell you, so the mind works like that, no? So you get a bit of this and that, and suddenly a story emerges, and then you know that you have to write it, and you have to leave everything, you have to give up everything. I stopped writing my doctoral thesis, my PhD thesis, so there's a time when you cannot do anything but write, so you do it. I mean, I suppose that happens to musicians when they think or they feel that they have to play, or when you think that you should become a lawyer. So suddenly your passion or your ambition in life is clear, and then you start doing it, and then you cannot stop, even though you don't get results in the end. If you need to write, you do it. So. Yeah,
so it's something that's always been in there,
yes,
and it grows little by little. So
I think it's second nature to me. It was there at some hidden corner, and it emerged when the moment was right, and that is what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for the questions.
All of my questions.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Anyone would like to ask another question?
You want to practice English? Yeah. Well, okay. So
I think we're waiting for the.
Shall I read a little extract for you to be a bit?
Maybe you could read one of the Irish stories because it's finished. I mean, it starts and it finishes.
I think one of the Irish.
Yeah, one of the Irish.
Yeah. It will be a bit long. I don't know. It's going to be a bit of putting suddenly starting speaking Spanish suddenly, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another thing. When he tells stories, what language? It's one of these silly questions. Does he tell the story in Gaelic or in English?
In English. The only moment when I mentioned that he speaks Gaelic is with at the burial of his sister, with his mother and this other woman that lived with them.
Yeah, the Dora. Yeah.
Dora. I think that instead of the well, I don't know because I don't know if I can find now the children. You're thinking about the Children of Lear or something, or Children of Lear.
Yeah.
I think that if you don't mind, I'm not going to listen to you. And I'm going to read the beginning of the second chapter, because I think it gives them an idea of what they are going to find. Because traditional stories, the Children of Lear is one of the traditional stories I have selected, and you can find it because there are many versions. Yeah,
But that's the one that you have written.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, you have chosen how to tell it as well.
Yeah.
It's not just a story.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Have you? Because I don't know exactly now where it is. Yeah, but otherwise I will just read.
Yeah,
It's a bit difficult to find that one now.
You start with the.
At the beginning of chapter 2. Yes? Okay. Just, we will not torment you for long, only a couple of pages. Yeah? So you know what to find. Right. Ahora cuando el gato empieza a hablar en castellano, ¿no? ¿No? Okay. Right. Bueno. El resplandor le hizo abrir los ojos. Su rostro se hallaba pegado a un suelo mullido y frío. El olor húmedo de la tierra le subía por la nariz en busca de sus pulmones. La siguiente inspiración descerrajó un disparo de dolor en su pecho, lo que le obligó a incorporarse para intentar respirar. El bosque lo rodeaba en su jaula natural, con sus espigados troncos a modo de rejas, que parecían acercarse cada vez más a él. La sensación de claustrofobia lo oprimió, extrayendo un gemido de pánico de sus labios. Debía huir, buscar un espacio abierto. El mar. Alejarse del peligro que lo acechaba. ¿Eran pisadas lo que acababa de escuchar? Echó a correr, tropezó, cayó, se arrastró hincando las uñas en la tierra y arrancó la hierba de su seno para intentar alzarse. No había duda, alguien lo perseguía, aunque no pudiera verlo. Se puso en pie y corrió como nunca lo había hecho, sin dejar de mirar atrás. Estaban allí, seguro, pisándole los talones, sedientas de la sangre que borboteaba en locura por sus hinchadas venas, a punto de reventarle el corazón. Ascendió por la escarpada ladera, los acantilados de Moore, ¿ya? Ascendió por la escarpada ladera, iluminada por los fogonazos de la tormenta, que se aproximaba inexorable. Justo cuando alcanzó la cumbre, al girarse, resbaló y cayó de espaldas. Todos.
Tienes que coger el libro para saber lo que pasa.
Yeah. I haven't finished. No. I was trying to cough. Okay.
I'm silly.
Yeah. Espaldas, vale. Resbaló y cayó de espaldas. Podía escuchar la respiración de miles de seres que jadeaban de pura ansia por atraparlo. El terror cuajó los músculos de todo su cuerpo, impidiéndole moverse. Dora, mamá, por favor, que alguien me ayude. Se escuchó a sí mismo susurrar sin aliento, en un sollozo desesperado ante la inminencia de la muerte. De pronto, un titán de nubes, inflamado de soberbia, desplegó su arco de luz y lanzó una flecha inmensa que alumbró la plataforma rocosa sobre la que el joven se hallaba. Al rasgarse la oscura piel del cielo en una cicatriz luminosa, pareció hacerse más poderosa la voz del mar, que bramaba bajo el acantilado, gritándole a la tempestad. Esta, en respuesta, emitió el alarido del trueno. La contienda entre agua y firmamento iluminó el escenario en el que la diminuta víctima, hecha un ovillo, aguardaba el ataque de su depredador. Una marea negruzca que flotaba a ras de suelo. A apenas 1 metro de sus pies, aquella masa comenzó a alzarse y, al hacerlo, una espiral de viento danzó a su alrededor, aturdiéndolo. El zumbido se transformó en el alarido de millares de voces que reclamaban su cuerpo para tomarlo, para hacerlo suyo, para aniquilarlo. Como si fuera un huracán, el movimiento rotatorio del enjambre lo agitó todo y este se convirtió súbitamente en una cabeza cuyas desmesuradas fauces se abrieron para engullir a su presa. El terror liberó por fin un grito desde el pecho de Connell, quien sintió cómo sus pulmones estallaban justo cuando la horrenda boca se cerró en torno a él. Gracias.